Welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, so I have to admit, when I first looked at the stack of research for today, I kind of hesitated.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, we've got titles like Conscious Commitment, Modern Pathways, The Architecture of Aligned Commitment. And my first thought was, are we about to get a lecture on filing taxes jointly?
Or a sermon.
Or a sermon on why we should all settle down? Exactly.
I can promise you it is neither of those things.
I know. Because once I started reading, I realized this isn't about the legal stuff at all. It's about something way more fundamental.
The container.
The container we turn our lives in. But before we get there, I have to ask, architecture. That's the main metaphor the source uses, and it just feels a little cold. Like, are we talking blueprints for romance? Because that doesn't sound very sexy.
It might not sound sexy at first, but stick with me here. If you really think about what the source material is saying, especially in the architecture of aligned commitment, the whole argument is that commitment isn't just a box you check.
Single, married, whatever.
Yeah, right. It is literally the structure you live inside. It has walls, foundation, it has windows. And just like a physical house, the design completely determines how you live. Does it let light in? Is the ceiling high enough to stand up straight? Or are you, constantly bumping your head?
Okay, I like that bumping your head image, because I think a lot of people
Yeah.
feel that. They feel cramped, or, the flip side is they feel like they're just standing in an open field with no shelter at all.
Exactly. And that is the whole mission for this deep dive. We are trying to move past that tired old debate of tradition is best versus burn it all down.
Right.
We want to look at the function of these commitments. The sources we're digging into today, including some great stuff from Life Fuel 365, they really challenge you to ask, is the house you're building actually designed for the person you are today?
That is the scary question, isn't it?
It is.
Because if the answer is no, then, well, you've got some remodeling to do.
And remodeling is messy. But here's the core tension we saw across every single one of these articles. It's this battle between freedom and security.
Yeah.
We all want autonomy to be ourselves, but we also crave that safety. As one of the authors put it, and I love this line, the forms we adopt are mirrors reflecting the life we hope to create.
Mirrors reflecting the life we hope to create. That's deep. But let's ground this for a minute. Because to understand where we're going with all these modern partnerships and cohabitation, we have to know where we came from.
We have to talk about the OG architecture.
We have to talk about tradition.
Right. So looking at the foundations and heritage of formal commitment, historically, marriage wasn't really about you and me gazing into each other's eyes.
No, not at all. It was about survival.
Mm-hmm.
It was about land and cows and making sure the village knew who belonged to who.
It was a framework for social organization, as the text puts it, a rite of passage. But here's the part that I think gets overlooked when people just criticize tradition. The sources all highlight this massive psychological benefit to that old school framework.
Which is?
Predictability.
Okay, you're losing me again. Predictability sounds incredibly boring. Honey, I love you because you're predictable. That's not a greeting card slogan.
I know. It sounds so dull. But think about it in terms of cognitive load.
What do you mean?
The source really emphasizes how much energy the human brain burns just making decisions. In a strictly traditional setup, and I mean strictly traditional, you get a script.
A script.
Yeah. You don't have to wake up on Saturday morning and negotiate who's mowing the lawn, who's making breakfast, who has to call the in-laws. The script just decides for you.
So it's like an energy-saving mode for your relationship.
That is a perfect way to put it. It saves a massive amount of mental bandwidth. The shared obligations, raising kids, running the household, they're preloaded.
Right.
When there's a template, you aren't constantly negotiating your own existence. You just walk into the house, the wall's already up, the roof is on. You feel safe because you know the rules.
I can definitely see the appeal of that. It's like buying a move-and-ready house versus, I don't know, trying to build one from scratch while you're also working a full-time job.
Precisely. And it's not just internal. The research talks about community support as a form of scaffolding.
Scaffolding.
Yeah, when you step into that traditional role, husband, wife, society knows how to treat you, you get invited to things as a unit, your relationship gets validated by the bank, by the government, by your neighbors. That external validation is a really powerful glue.
The text called it the shared narrative.
Mm-hmm.
It's a story you don't even have to write yourself. You just step into it. We are a family. And that fosters a real sense of belonging.
It does. It connects you to history, to your parents, to your culture. But
here it comes, the but.
Here comes the but. The sources are very clear on the flip side. A pre-built house is great for safety, but what if the architect built it for someone 2 feet shorter than you?
Then you spend your whole life ducking.
You do. The sources describe this feeling as being constrained by expectations that no longer reflect personal values.
Right.
If the script says you have to play a certain role, like the silent provider or the domestic caretaker, and that role suffocates you, then all that safety just starts to feel like a trap.
Which totally explains why we're seeing this massive shift.
Yeah.
People are looking at that pre-built house and saying, you know what? I think I'd rather design my own.
Which brings us to the next section of the research.
Modern pathways.
This is where things get really interesting. The texts start talking about civil partnerships, long-term cohabitation, all these other non-traditional arrangements.
Now, I have to play devil's advocate for a second here,
Go for it.
because I know what some listeners are probably thinking. They hear modern pathways or long-term cohabitation, and they just hear commitment phobe. They think this is just a fancy way of keeping one foot out the door. I love you, but let's not, label it.
It's the classic assumption, right? That flexibility just equals a lack of seriousness. But the data in modern pathways actually suggests the opposite.
How so?
These people often aren't lazy about commitment. They are hyperactive about it.
Yeah.
The driver here is a desire for equality and autonomy.
So it's not about avoiding the work. It's about changing the job description.
Exactly. The number one benefit cited here is flexibility. I mean, think about how fast the world changes now compared to, say, 1950.
Oh, totally.
Career changes, moving cities, shifting gender roles. The sources note that these flexible arrangements often adapt way better to these evolving life circumstances.
It's like modular living. If you aren't locked into this rigid role of husband with 500 years of historical baggage attached to that one word, maybe it's easier to say, hey, I'm going to take a year off to write a book. Can you cover the bills?
Without feeling like you're breaking some sacred law. Right. The reduced pressure that the text mentions is huge. Without those rigid social expectations, partners often report less stress because they aren't failing to meet some standard that doesn't even fit them.
But, and this is a big but that I found really compelling, there's a cost to all this freedom.
Oh, there is.
The sources call it the lack of societal scaffolding.
This is critical. Remember our move-in ready house?
Yeah.
Well, modern pathways are like someone dropping a pile of lumber and a saw in your front yard.
And no instruction manual.
No instructions, no little IKEA cartoon showing you which screw goes where. The text calls this the sweat equity of modern love.
Sweat equity, that sounds exhausting.
It can be. In a traditional marriage, society provides the scaffolding. Everyone knows the rules. In these modern arrangements, you have to build that scaffolding yourself.
You have to.
You have to engage in what the experts call conscious communication.
So you can't just assume, oh, you'll take out the trash because that's what guys do, or you'll organize the social calendar because that's what women do.
No. Those assumptions are the old blueprints. If you throw them out, you have to literally sit down and explicitly negotiate. Who is doing the laundry? How are we handling money? What happens if one of us gets sick?
That requires a level of communication that, frankly, most of us are just not trained for.
It does. It requires so much intention. But the experts argue this effort fosters a really profound sense of agency.
Agency.
It creates a relationship that exists as a choice, not an obligation. You know you're there because you want to be and because you built this thing together, plank by plank.
So let's just recap the trade-off here. Tradition gives you high security, low decision fatigue, but it can be restrictive. Modern pathways offer high flexibility and customization, but they require a ton of that sweat equity and conscious work to keep the thing from falling over.
That's the landscape.
So which one is better?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we all want to know, right? Who's
Well-
happier? The couple in the prefab house or the couple building their own yurt?
And this is where we have to pivot our thinking. We need a new metric. If we're not using longevity or social approval as the only measures of success, what are we using?
Okay.
The source, the architecture of aligned commitment, gives us the answer. The ultimate measure is well-being.
Well-being. That sounds nice, but it feels a little vague. How do you actually measure that? Am I well? I feel like I could answer that differently depending on how much coffee I've had.
That's a fair point. But the text suggests we move beyond the label marriage, civil partnership, whatever, and look at the impact on the individuals. And they provide 3 really powerful reflection questions to test this.
Okay,
I think these are worth breaking down.
let's do it. I have them right here. Question 1. Does this commitment support personal growth?
This is huge. A relationship should not make you smaller.
Smaller how?
So think about it this way. The text draws this amazing distinction between amputation and pruning.
Ooh.
In a bad structure, you feel like you're amputating parts of yourself to fit inside. Maybe you stop painting because your partner thinks it's messy. Or you stop seeing your friends because your partner gets jealous.
You're cutting off limbs to fit in the box.
Yes, that is a failed architecture.
And pruning.
Pruning is healthy. You might prune your time a bit. I'm going to paint a little less on Tuesdays so we can have date night. But the tree is still growing. The commitment provides a kind of trellis that helps you grow up. If the structure is forcing you to shrink, it's dangerous.
That is a really helpful distinction. Amputation versus pruning. Okay, question number 2. Does it reduce stress and enhance well-being?
It sounds so simple, but how often do we really ask it? The source uses the image of coming home.
Coming home.
When you mentally or physically step into your commitment, does it feel like you are taking off heavy armor? Or does it feel like you're putting it on?
Like you're walking on eggshells.
Exactly. If the architecture of your commitment is constantly causing the roof to leak stress onto your head, it is not a good structure. It doesn't matter how perfect it looks from the outside. If the inside is a high-stress environment, the commitment is failing its primary function.
And the third question, this one hits on the practical stuff. How do shared responsibilities align with values?
This goes right back to that negotiation we talked about. Are the financial, household, and emotional duties distributed in a way that feels fair to you?
Right.
The text notes that resentment is almost always the result of a mismatch here. If you say you value equality but you're doing 90% of the housework, the architecture is tilted. And eventually it's going to slide right off its foundation.
It's so interesting because as we go through these questions, I realize you can apply them to a super traditional marriage and you can apply them to a very modern, loose arrangement.
That is the key insight. The source explicitly states, the label matters far less than the choice behind it. You can have a traditional marriage that, without reflection, feels like a prison. And you can have a traditional marriage that feels incredibly liberating because you chose those roles and they fit you perfectly.
And vice versa. You can have a modern, flexible partnership that's actually a complete nightmare of insecurity and confusion because nobody has a clue what's going on.
Precisely. It is not about the form. It is all about the intentionality. A traditional marriage is a great trellis for some people. For others, it's a cage. A modern partnership is a wide open sky for some. For others, it's a terrifying freefall.
This really connects to the bigger picture here. We have a source called the Universal Architecture of Human Commitment. And it suggests that underneath all these legal and cultural differences, we're all kind of looking for the same thing.
We really are. Whether you are in a culture where arranged marriage is the norm or a culture where polyamory is becoming more visible, the human questions are identical.
What are those universal questions?
They're simple. Am I supported? Do I feel seen and respected? Does this partnership align with my life goals?
You know, it's funny, when you zoom out like that, the whole culture war aspect of this just sort of melts away.
It does.
It stops being traditional values versus modern chaos. It just becomes about the human experience of connection.
It validates everyone's experience. You don't have to reject tradition to find alignment. You just have to make sure the tradition is working for you, not against you.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've looked at the scaffolding of tradition, that safe, pre-built house that saves you cognitive load, but, might have low ceilings. We've looked at the flexible custom builds of modern pathways, which offer freedom, but demand all that sweat equity.
And we've learned that the only building code that really matters is your own well-being.
So practically speaking, what does our listener do with all this? Let's say someone is listening on their commute. Maybe they're looking at their own relationship, or maybe they're single and looking forward. What's the move?
Well, if there is one single takeaway from all these sources, it's that commitment is a tool for conscious living. It's not something that just happens to you. Right?
It's something you have to actively shape.
Don't just let the architecture of your life happen by accident.
Exactly. Don't just live in the house because the previous owner left the keys. You have to look at the walls. Ask yourself those 3 questions. Am I amputating parts of myself? Is this reducing my stress or creating it?
And if the answer is it's creating stress, that doesn't automatically mean get a divorce or break up, right?
Not at all. It might just mean you need to do some renovation.
Okay.
You might need to renegotiate the social contract. You might need to bring in some of that conscious communication to shore up the foundation.
The sources refer to this whole ongoing process as your Life Fuel 365 story. I think that's such a great way to put it. Your commitment is the fuel for your daily life. It should cultivate clarity, harmony, and fulfillment.
Reflect, decide, and then embrace the path that aligns with your heart. Because at the end of the day, the strongest commitment isn't the one with the most rigid rules. It's the one that is made with eyes wide open. Eyes wide open. I like that. Be the architect of your own life. We're going to leave you with the motto from our source material, which I think is just perfect for this deep dive.
Stay curious, stay resilient, keep the spark alive.
Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.
Take care.